Dear colleagues, we continue our working day, and the next briefing will be dedicated to the topic Contest Without Choice. State secretaries may bear reforms. Our participants today are Uliana Suprun, Acting Minister of Health of Ukraine, Volodymyr Omelian, Minister of Infrastructure of Ukraine, Pavlo Kovtanyuk, Deputy Minister of Health of Ukraine, Mykola Vygovsky, Coordinator Monitoring Mission, Доброчесно, Yaroslav Yurchyshin, CEO Transparency International of Ukraine, Olga Stefanishina, CEO of Charity Patients of Ukraine. Good afternoon. It is nothing to be afraid in life. There are only things which we should understand. Now there is a time to understand more in order to be less afraid. We want to understand how state secretaries are selected by the Commission of National State Service. We saw how the civil service law was adopted for professionals to enter the civil service as citizens of Ukraine. We should demand from our civil servants to be professionals. However, this procedure, which is ongoing, it is not perfect. We see how documents are submitted by people who were in the government of former President Yanukovych, not only in his government, but also even those who in our Ministry of Health were fired due to the lack of professionalism. We see that the documents submitted, they have not been investigated. They just superfluously look on the diplomas and the years of experience, not in detail how many years of managerial experience they have. Now the Commission checks candidates for State Secretary of the Ministry of Health. Those people who nominated themselves, some of them are executives of pharmaceutical companies, other are executives of some insurance companies. Are the people, are the candidates, they were fired, had been fired from the Ministry of Health, but they have not been rejected, and now they partake in the second round of contest. We in the Ministry of Health have collected young professional team, and these young professionals work to improve the system of healthcare in Ukraine, and we should see the state secretary who will work jointly with us, who will be professional, working at our ministry, and who will continue working when we stop work for the ministry. But the candidates nominated, they do not meet requirements which I mentioned. The commission, there is only one commission to select secretaries for all the ministries. We understand that they are professionals, but there are some specificities. There is specifics between the ministries, so terms of reference should be drafted for each state secretary. but there are no TORs. And we also had the talk at our meetings between the ministers, and we decided to establish a commission and invite members of this contest commission and all cabinet of ministers representatives interested in this process, and our friends from NGOs such as Transparency International and others to review this procedure. I would like to stress that we support professional civil servants. This is a good step towards Europe, where professionals work in such offices, but the procedure which is ongoing, it needs improvement. Maria Curie said, sometime you can't hope to come to expect building perfect world without working on one's own development, and we should also be responsible for the development of the mankind as a whole. So all of us are responsible for the development of civil service in our ministries, and we appeal to everyone to support our commission, which will consider the new procedure, review the new procedure of selection of state secretaries in order to improve the contest system. Thank you. And now we are giving the floor to Mr. Kovtoniuk. Thank you. As the Deputy Minister of Health, who is responsible for implementation of reforms, I would like to say that the State Secretary position is very important. The reason number one is the State Secretary is responsible for ministries, apparatuses, and operation of this body. If we want systemic reforms, we need the ministries do implement them. Not only volunteers, not only outsourced persons and advisors. To this end, we need state secretary. All reforms are not one day event. The ministers, deputy ministers initiate them, but there should be someone who bring them into practice, into institutional memory. That is why State Secretary's position is so important. When the law was adopted, all of us laid hopes on it. We expected, and now we will have a person to assist us with implementing these functions, with fulfilling these functions, but we see that the practices are imperfect now. Instead of getting a professional for the state secretary's positions, it should not be a political figure, it should be a person from future. The system always selects to other persons from the past, but not from the future. Something is wrong with the selection procedure. That is why we have gathered here in order to draw attention to the importance of this problem, because without high quality secretary, a long-term effective reform, efficient reform is impossible. Now we are giving the floor to Mr. Volodymyr Omelian, Minister of Infrastructure of Ukraine. All of us have been combating with this system of the past. Only new people may give new quality to Ukraine, and here we can talk not about our personal preferences, which people we prefer, Mr. Milano, Ms. Suprun. State secretaries will do business. This is what the past figures seen. No one will not do business behind our backs. We are for transparent, efficient system, and we understand that we are on temporary positions, but we should be sure that the reforms will not be peddled and will not be reversed. That is why I hope for domestic discussion. We have discussed this on this meeting of the Cabinet of Ministers to understand what is happening with the contest commissions, why such decisions are taken, why good candidates are rejected, while the nominated figures from the past they went through up to the second round. As concerns the same way as with the system of e-declarations and Prozora tendering system, here we are going ahead, but there are other areas where we also need achievements.
So the working group will be created to work on the new order, because those nominations that were made and those who will take part in the contest, this is the result of lack in these procedures. So there are specialists who could not participate in the contest because they lack the experience in positions. And next commission, they consider the experience situationally. So here there is a field for manipulation, and some young good specialists are not included in this contest because Commission believed that the head of department of Big and Joe, that this is not managerial experience. And if there are two people in the enterprise, so it can be considered as managerial experience. So that's why there are some violations and according about the procedure of the contest. In the Ministry of Infrastructure and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you know that some notorious people won the contest, and the secretary is appointed as state secretary, and it happened so that from those 20 scores that can be made by the candidate, we may say only about 2 scores for testing. Next 18 scores are given by the members of the commission for 9 criteria. So these criteria unknown, but but the assessments of the commission, they are not known. So thus they can make then they can provide high scores to the participant they want to, and it is difficult to change the procedure. The commission should open the data. They do not provide this data, but this is not classified information, and it should be made public. Also, a big problem is that people from the past, they win these contests, those who were involved in corruption, and the impartiality of the candidates is not assessed. They assess everything except background. They assess communication skills, leadership, but they do not consider, they do not take into account some corruption scandals, some business connections, conflict of interests. This is absent. That is why it is important to start the process of new order, and in my opinion, the order should be developed by civil society, anti-corruption organizations, because in my opinion, This commission has conflict of interests, and it cannot be the entity that develop a new order for themselves. So we see that their work is not transparent, and we believe that the new order will improve and make this procedure more transparent. Vyacheslav Yucheshin is given the floor. Good afternoon. Really, any mechanism that is effective can be spoiled because of corruptive implementation. And now we see the procedure of contest. And these are non-political figures. So the state secretary, he should be not politician, but chief administrator, but policy wins. And it is the guilt of those who prepare this, and they get minimum of information about candidates, and this preliminary analysis, and the agency should provide this information, and if they do, we do not have this information. And good candidates are just filtered out. And we understand that they try to create obstacles to the process of reforms. And that was declared by the Minister of Infrastructure today. And in key ministries, if they start reforms, then all the system will be changed. And we face the situation that the contests will be announced for all top positions, and we should motivate new people to come to civil service. And what we have in the result, those people who have international experience, they are just left out of the contest because of lack of managerial experience. And those who worked in international programs as heads of civil initiatives, they are filtered out. And there are people who just left because they were involved in some schemes, and this it doesn't. So we see a lot of people like this that. So there are some cases, the proceedings against these people, but these people are appointed as state secretaries, and we see a huge problem, and we believe that the cabinet of ministers that are hiding behind some formal things, and they should not be the participants of these violations. And now we see how effective mechanism is discredited in the interests of political figures, or those corruptive schemes that prevail in the managerial network in many areas. So in the Ministry of Infrastructure, we have situations with partners when someone comes and verify the information and forced to take serious decisions. And the state secretary is not a reformer, a person who can work and is open to something new. So no matter what, so why it is so important for us to have these state secretaries? They should support the initiatives of the new team of the Ministry of Health, and that should be a person who will win through honest contest. Otherwise, it will be an obstacle for the reforms in the ministry, and National Agency of State Service does not provide the choice, and they do not allow all those who meet criteria to participate. They want to and the national agency uses this opportunity and narrows the definition of managerial experience. So they just narrow these criteria, and they filter out strong candidates. And when the Ministry of Infrastructure and Trade, we see that there is some violations by the Commission, and I agree with Mykola Vygovsky that we should change the provision, we should change the order in order to limit this discretion, and we follow European model, and we delegated the representatives of trade union, and we know the level of trade union in Ukraine, and the representatives of employers, understanding who they are. And if the order envisages publicity, we will see who plays for what. And but now this is the interest of specific industrial groups. So if they act in the interests of financial groups, this is corruption. And we will study this process, and we will demand investigation and punishment for those who are guilty. And Commission, despite there were proposals that there should be verification of all the candidates, all the contestants who participate to be nominated. So they see that those candidates that are nominated, there will be a lot of issues with these candidates, and we are ready to help Commission with, together with Transparency International, reanimation package of reforms. We will address to the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and will demand the verification of their role in these schemes, because this is not natural when the quality of education is controlled by a person who destroyed the Institute of Ukrainian Studies and followed Tabachnik orders. And when the key ministry that should be a law enforcement body that controls national police, that they nominate people who is included in some bias videos. So, and how this video was made and made public. So we thank the reformers in power that they voice these matters, and we will maximally support, not because we have some view on these ministries, but because only transparent procedure and open contest without filtering out strong contestants, it will bring new quality, and this is the important aspect of reform of state service that is now of really of importance. We thank reformers and the representatives of the ministry who voiced their opinion, because we know that a lot of people dissatisfied with the Commission, and there are also people who lobby this and they are satisfied. So we guarantee maximum support, and we will do everything that the contestants that are qualified, that they will be able to take part in this contest, and the best candidates should win. Olga Stefanishina, dear colleagues, first good news is that we discussed this today, and this contest exists, and there is an opportunity to influence on them. And the main heads of the ministries, they speak about the problems that exist. And to carry out this contest, it's not enough. We should carry out them in correct way. And we know that this reform was delayed, and during 20 years, nothing happened in the area. And now we see some first steps in order to change the system. I would like to say that we as civil society, as a patient organization, we believe that ministry does good job, because now at the ministry that are people on high positions that didn't come to steal. They are not included in this system that gained from this field. And we want that reforms continue, and this is very important. And I witnessed a contest that was carried out for the head of the doctor's service, and there were many different funny stories, and I heard those answers during interviews. When one person submitted declaration, and this person didn't mention that her husband, that he has profit, what his profit is, and with what companies, pharmaceutical companies, he has connections. And when she was asked why so, she said that he went on business trip when I was filing this declaration. So it's not enough to submit declarations. The Commission should check and verify these declarations, and the heads of the medical services were selected, and the Commission was surprised. They were not able to get information about the candidates who provided their resumes. And also, the Commission should work and carry out their function properly and verify the documents, and also there should be access for the public. And all the candidates who provided their resumes, this information should be made public, whether this Commission elected them or not, because there is criticism in this, and their declaration should be made public, and they should be verified. And also the results of tests that will be made public, they should be made public, and we should understand whether we should elect these candidates or we should start a new contest. So we understand that people worked in the ministries for tens of years, and they got and profited from tenders, and now they try to become state secretaries in the ministries that only started reforms, and we want to make this contest more transparent.
Thank you. I would like to share several other facts with you. For 100 hryvnias, you can buy answers to the test. All 400 questions of the test, the answers to them could be bought online by contestants. We should also look not only onto the law on civil service, but also onto the law on lustration. We should look on those people who worked. We should study the biographies of those who worked in the ministries. We heard from our friends and other ministries, such as Ministry of Infrastructure, head of our reforms with the Ministry of Health, organizations who combat corruption, and Transparency International, and Patients of Ukraine NGO charity who address patients' rights. We have coordinated efforts have been put in coordinated efforts, and we believe that there are problems with the system of selection of secretaries, so we insist that the laws are good. And you've heard, everyone, that we are supported, but we should improve the process of selection. And together with our partners in the government, together with the Commission, we will be working further to have state secretaries be appointed, who will be able to improve our country's system for better. We have now a round of questions and answers. Mr. Minister, you said to Radio Liberty that you will not support State Secretary. The same question to Ms. Suprun. If the State Secretary will be appointed, who will be someone's figure, someone lobbyist, what would you do? In my case, the situation is very simple. I don't try to keep on my office. Some of us, me or State Secretary, will not stay working in the ministry. As concerns engagement, I will say that the procedure is engaged very much and is not impartial, and I hope the conclusions will be made, but I'm furious. My case is just a fact which support. This is the evidence that we are giving a civil service system to the people who are not transparent and who do not have goodwill. Thank you. The candidates who submitted their applications, you can see it as online in the internet, but the idea is not to talk about persons, but to discuss now the procedure. We now call on professionals to submit their CVs because we need young professionals who are enthusiastic and who want to work state secretaries. The salaries are higher than those in civil service of Ukraine, and we would like the candidates to be selected who are real enthusiasts. We are not talking about individuals. We are talking about future of our country. If we want to go to Europe, we should have such professionals who can pave us the way to Europe. The law is saying that candidates should speak English because there were not enough candidates who speak English, but we demand that all criteria, eligibility criteria, they should be included. It is impossible to postpone some criteria for 2 years. In the we can't replace persons so that they can go from one ministry to another ministry. You know that public procurement is very complicated sphere when state secretary will be responsible for public procurement, and such persons should be knowledgeable in this tendering procedure. In brief, the candidates, the applicants who have been selected for some second round, it is better not to appoint them, even if they have won. For those candidates, it is better to conduct additional verification procedure. I would like to say that we will be proactive, and soon you will hear public information on the 4 first ministers with the analysis of the candidates, of their impartiality. This is Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Occupied Territories, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Ministry of Health. The other ministries' candidates will be analyzed later on when they're available, and we will request suspension of their adoption until the procedure is changed, so that we have procedure for the best candidatures to win, because very professional candidates, they have not submitted their documents because they do not believe in fairness of this contest. We should demonstrate that our procedure will allow the best candidates who understand the challenges they can win in such contest. The last question, please. Assistant to NMP, I heard that there are reforms in the ministries, and we can be calm while sleeping. Today, as concerns Ministry of Health, there is a hotline, but this hotline almost doesn't work. How the ministry is going to have liaison with the general public if the hotline doesn't work? The short answer: the state secretary. This will be his responsibility, but the system of hotline has been already changing. We addressed this issue already. Dear colleagues, I would like to say goodbye to you and remind that the fifth channel now broadcast the marathon on decentralization issues.